Whether you have a win or you have a loss, you only have 24 hours to either celebrate or mourn. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and in this episode, we're talking about the 24-hour rule. Now, the 24-hour rule is that whether you have a win or you have a loss, you only have 24 hours to either celebrate or mourn according to whatever the outcome was. So most recently, here's a perfect example. I had a real estate listing that I had listed. It was a referral. I thought it was going to be an easy sell. And unfortunately, the seller was not wanting to list it at the recommended price point. It needed a lot of work. He wanted to list it far higher than any of the similar comps in the area. And I sent an email out. If you're on my list recently, I kind of sent an email out saying I failed this time because I did not really adequately push back on that price very much. My strategy was to say, let's see if we can just list it, see if he'll accept one of the lower offers that will inevitably come in, or if we're not getting offers, maybe he will change his mind and decide to lower the listing price. But unfortunately, we got a couple of offers in. It was around where I initially suggested that we list the house, and he was not ready to accept it at that time. This was probably June 2022, and I'm recording this here in December 2022. And so it went by maybe 2 months or so without any offers that he was happy with. And he turned down the offers that we did get, which again were lower than his asking price, as he wanted a little bit too much. And I didn't really push back. I kind of sent him those offers via text or email. He said no. I didn't really jump on the phone and try to convince him and let him know, look, these are great offers. This is around where I think we need to be. And unfortunately, after about 2 months, he decided to withdraw the listing. We took it down. And then about a month or two later, he asked me if we can terminate it, meaning literally like finishing the deal, not working together, terminating the existing listing. And again, I didn't really push back. I was thinking, whatever, I'm going to go focus on other deals. This guy was not really super reasonable on the listing price initially to begin with, yada, yada. So we end up terminating, and then I find out it was just like a cruel type of torture. I'm not sure why I looked it up, but I did look it up, and I just was curious to see, well, he asked me to terminate it. Did he list it with someone else? And lo and behold, a few days after terminating the listing, I did see that the same property was listed with another realtor closer to the price that I initially told him to list at. So this was like a little bit of a nail in the coffin for me, very painful to see that this should have been my freaking listing. I told him this is what the price needed to be. He ignored my warnings and he wanted to proceed anyways. And it just kind of crushed me a little bit, just seeing that like that was my deal. I did the work to land that listing, to build up some rapport, to get photos taken. I delegated that out because this was a virtual deal that I was doing. So my brother went to go get the photos, put my signs up. We got the listing ready. We had the listing agreement in place. And it was a perfect opportunity to sell a property that I had done the comps on, I had done my homework on. And just seeing that another realtor had it listed and that it was under contract within 4 or 5 days, literally had multiple offers in 5 days. Whoop-de freaking do. It would have done that too if I had listed it at the original price that I had recommended, but we didn't. And I remember just kind of complaining about it on my stories and just saying like, God, this sucks. And here's a screenshot of me telling him, these are some great offers that we just got. I know it's below what we're listed at, but I recommend you take them. And just hearing him say like, oh, wow, it sounds like you want me to sell it for that price. I'm not going to. I'm going to wait it out for that higher price point. And so I was just kind of venting on my story of how that should have been my deal. If that dude just listened to me and listed it at the price that I recommended initially, that would have been my commission. I would have had the multiple offers over asking price. And I didn't want to get too hung up on it, but a top producing realtor that I know and that I am connected with on Instagram messaged me saying, 24-hour rule. We get 24 hours to complain about it and then on to the next, something along those lines. And it was a helpful reminder because I have heard other mentors that I follow talk about this rule as well. Don't celebrate for too long and don't complain and mope for too long. You're always on to the next thing. And another thing that's important is to not live in the past. You've got to continually chase greatness, chase that next deal, chase that next big goal, and don't live in the past. You don't want to be the person who is bragging about the touchdown quarterback pass that you made in high school when you're a 40-year-old person sitting at the bar. No one cares about what you did 10, 20 years ago, let alone even a year ago. It's cool that you've accomplished some things, but don't get stuck in the past. You've got to actually move on and focus on bigger and better. Now, I recently mentioned the Green Power Ranger. He passed away, I believe, by suicide. And I don't want to speculate and I don't want to say that depression isn't real or anything like that. But I remember making a comment to a friend that it felt like to me, that guy, Tommy, or Jason David Frank, it just felt like he was really holding on to that Power Ranger role. And that's all he really had going for him. And he was kind of milking it. And he wasn't really doing anything new. He was going to different Comic-Con conventions, posing as the Green Power Ranger for 20 years. That wasn't even really his baby. He didn't create the Power Rangers. He was an actor in the original Power Rangers. And while I did love that show as a kid, and I even wanted to change my name to Tommy when I was in elementary school, I think we had a change your name day in school. And I remember picking Tommy because of Power Rangers. But I think that's what happens if you hold on too much to the past. Like, you have nothing to really live for. Like, what are you focusing on? What are you doing next, right? We're kind of living in the past in some cases, and it's not very exciting. It doesn't invoke inspiring feelings of moving towards something. Instead, we are holding on to something in the past instead of actually looking forward and pushing further. Now, again, that's just me, just some of my thoughts based on a comment that I had made previously of like, gosh, this person's really just holding on to that role and have no idea what he was going through or anything like that. But I think it is that important for us to focus on, where are we going? Look to where you're going. And if you're not excited about where you're going, maybe change those goals and elevate them so that you can get excited about what you're doing, what you're working on, and the direction that you're rowing. Because if you're not sure where you're going to go, any road will take you there. You're going to be going nowhere because you don't have an address or anything like that in your GPS, right? You've got to have coordinates on where you're trying to go, and that can change over time. But if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to go anywhere. And this is a reminder to myself as well, because I've got to get my goals dialed in for 2023 and beyond. Where is it that I'm trying to go? What are the things that I'm trying to accomplish? Because once I decide on those, that's ultimately going to impact the actual sub steps that make up those higher level steps. So if I say I want to buy 10 properties, there's a whole lot of things that need to happen to make that a reality, right? And so what are your goals for 2023? What are you focusing on? But more importantly, no matter what's happening in your life, good or bad, remember the 24-hour rule. You have 24 hours to celebrate if something goes well, whenever you have a win, whenever you close a deal, whenever you land a sale. And whenever you lose one, like I did in this example, where I looked at the listing and I realized another realtor had taken my client after we terminated and sold it for around the same price that I had initially suggested that we list at, that was just such a kick in the shin for me. But 24-hour rule, can't mope on it. I should not have even looked at it because I knew it was going to upset me anyway. But you know how it is. We like to look at that stuff and it just tortures us ever so slightly. But 24-hour rule, had to move on, had to realize, look, don't look at the commissions, don't count the money that should have been yours. Go out and get more, go out and do more deals, go out and make things happen. And maybe we can even use that anger and that little bit of upsetting feelings that we had as fuel to go out, crush it, land more clients, do more business, help more people at the end of the day. I'm not just trying to sound like the Sharky salesperson. We're ultimately here to help other people. But let's be real, we can all get competitive sometimes, and it does suck to lose every now and then. So I let that fuel me whenever I move forward in the next transaction, helping the next client. All right, that person didn't listen to me. I'm going to do better on my presentation for the next client and the next client and the next client. So 24-hour rule. I hope you found some value in this episode. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share this with a friend. If you haven't gotten my free thing at chrisbello.com/free, be sure to check that out. And if you haven't left a review on Apple Podcasts, I would really appreciate if you took a second to do that now. Thanks once again for your time. I look forward to catching you on the next episode, and we'll talk soon.